Welcome to Organizing Operators and Networks. I'm Matthew. This time we're going to take a look at how we can use components as tools to organize the work that we've done here in TouchDesigner. The component family, here located on the OpCreate dialog, is a special family of operator, and it's special in that components are our only family of operators that can hold entire networks inside of themselves. A good example of this kind of hierarchy can be seen with the geometry component. Our geometry component from the outside looks like it's just a torus, but in fact, if we peek inside of the geometry component, we can see that there's actually a torus SOP that lives inside of this component. Now, this is interesting for a number of different ways, and part of what it means is that we can build really complex sets of geometry, encapsulate that inside of a geometry component, and save ourselves a lot of extra space here inside of our network. Let's build a really simple example to see what that might look like. So I might say start with a circle SOP here. And I think my circle SOP, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a copy SOP. I love the copy SOP as a way to create kind of fast copies here. I'm going to use a rectangle SOP here as well. And we're going to connect the rectangle to our copy. And we'll see if we can take a glance at this. Let's turn down the radius a little bit here on our circles. Beautiful. And then on our copy, let's just turn up the number of copies to maybe like 10. And we're going to translate that down Z here a good bit. So we can see we've got a set of copies that kind of extend here along our Z axis. And in fact, we could even let's use a skin SOP to start to think about how we might connect those together. And I'm actually, in this case, I'm going to skin a group of n primitives. So every 2, we can see that we've built out these little tubes here. I love that. Let's go ahead and let's copy one more time. And this time I'm going to copy with a sphere SOP. And my sphere SOP, I'm going to go ahead and change that to be, I think, just a polygon. I'm going to turn down the detail just to 1 for now. I'm going to plug that here into my output and love it. I love the direction this is going. But if I take a look out here, if I back up a little bit, I suddenly have, not a lot of operators, but we could quickly end up with a ton of different operators that spread out way across our network. So what I might do instead is I might use a geometry comp. I'm going to go ahead and box select these operators. So right click to box select. I'm going to cut, Control X, zip inside. I'm going to delete this torus. I'm going to paste here all of my pieces. I'm going to add a null SOP using Alt N and then set this to be my display and render. And now what I've done is I've put all of that work here inside of a single geometry component. And I can use this to really quickly organize and move around that whole set of operators. Now, I could do that both with geometry. That's one way that I might think about organizing my networks. Or I could think about how that works with containers. And in fact, if we take a look at our palette, there's a good set of examples here inside of the palette that do exactly that. And in fact, if we were to say, look at in mapping, and we grab the stoner component here, and we took a look at what's in here, we can see that this is a container component, and this container component holds a whole nother set of operators that compose this particular reusable element here in TouchDesigner. Containers are great anytime we want to be able to have a user interface, or we want to have some UV coordinate that's associated with what we've created. But sometimes we want to create elements that are purely organizational. And in that case, the base component is an operator that we can use here in TouchDesigner to hold components or operators or any set of network elements that we might create. We can see if we can move here inside of our base component. We can use this to organize the work that we're doing and move it quickly around TouchDesigner without having an interface necessarily that's connected to it. These are just 3 different examples of how we might organize the work that we do inside of TouchDesigner using components. And there's lots of other ways that we might use the component family to be able to do that. Hopefully this gives you some ideas about how you can use components to organize your work and think about how you might make elements that are easily transportable throughout your projects.